Greetings and welcome to the Superb Diamond Range podcast, episode 42. In today's show, I'll be interviewing Jennifer Kempson of Mamafurfur as part of the financial series. Jennifer is an inspirational UK money blogger and reaches people through her excellent, well-researched, detailed videos on finance and investing on YouTube and via her financial blog on Mamafurfur. There are plenty of popular personal finance podcasts in the United States like Choose.fi, Mad Scientist, and blogs like JL Collins' Stock Series and Mr. Money Mustache blog, but only a few I'm aware of in the UK like the Escape Artist and the Monovator blog about investing. Particularly coming from Glasgow, Scotland, there's not many like Gemma at Mamafurfur doing what she's been doing. Okay, so firstly, welcome Jennifer to the Superb Diamond Range podcast. It's an honour to have you on the show. Been looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you very much. It's exciting. I think this is my second ever podcast, so yeah, it's exciting.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so to begin with, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got interested in personal finance and helping others through your blog and YouTube channel.
Yeah, sure, no worries. So as you said, I am born and raised in Glasgow, hence the Scottish accent. And basically, money and blogging about money was never part of my plan for life. I've got a degree in electrical engineering. I used to build robots and all that kind of fun stuff. But when I was on my second maternity leave, when my husband actually came into a relationship with about £25,000 worth of debt. I'd never experienced debt before. And I remember just one night thinking that both of us had to work. There was no way to pay the bills, pay all this debt off. It just felt that we were trapped, living a life of working paycheck to paycheck and really seeing a lot of our money going out the door. And so it was that night that I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's where I stumbled upon the whole world of money blogs and vlogs and books, and my mind was just blown. I never realised that you could, achieve financial independence or freedom or any of these terms. I thought, you just had to live a paycheck. You just worked for a living to get money. I didn't know there was any other ways to get money in your life. So from that day forward, I was, reading so many books and blogs, and I realised that there was a lot of US centric information, and trying to translate that into the UK was a little bit harder to follow. We have investment ISAs, we have different options here. And I was on YouTube one day and I thought, you know what, I could do YouTube. It looks quite easy. It looks like you just point and click and could do that. And my background is in sales. So after I was an engineer, I've been in sales for about 12 years. And so I just thought, right, I'm just going to pick up a camera and blog about my experience in this journey. And so I started Mamafurfur officially about 4 years ago, but really on money. It's only been 2 years. I started my YouTube channel and blog. Just to help others, just to kind of document what I was learning and to give them a resource for information that could help them too. And yeah, since then I was lucky enough to win the UK Money Vlogger of the Year last year.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm up for it again this year as well in a couple of weeks' time. So, and as you know, there's not that many UK-based people, but that actually makes me think that, we need to get as many great podcasts and YouTube channels and everything out there. So yeah, that's kind of my journey. And to be honest, I didn't think people would enjoy my content the way they are. It's just fun, just fun to put out content and help people. So that's where my passion started from. And now it's obviously bringing in a little bit of money, a side hustle for me, which is incredible whilst doing my day job. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell, really.
That's really impressive. I mean, my sort of introduction into it kind of was through a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yep.
And that one sort of a friend gave to me, and that kind of got me a little bit into it. And then I sort of, like yourself, found a lot of American sort of blogs that talked about investing and finance and, personal finance, that kind of thing. There's obviously a lot being talked about at the moment about the FIRE movement. That's financial independence, retire early. Do you identify yourself with the FIRE movement?
Not strictly. I more identify with the FIRO movement, which is financial independence, retiring optional. because I think naturally you should be like looking at making the best use of your money to drive multiple income sources, because the world is so transient that you never know. Let's say you've got a day job, you never actually have the same security that they did 50 years ago with that. So I actually think it's more about developing work that gives you income, but that you enjoy. I don't really think that the goal should be that you earn as much as you can and then boom, one day you're going to retire. I think naturally as humans, we want to contribute to the world. We want to make it better in some way. So I'm more in the kind of retirement optional and more the freedom that actually do something that makes your heart sing and makes you alive, rather than thinking you have to work for someone else potentially.
Yeah, I would have to agree on that. I think particularly if you're doing things that you enjoy or taking on things that interest you, you could do it for as long as you want, really. There's no,
Absolutely.
Keeps
your mind working. And I think people who often identify with the FIRE movement, I think, are probably feeling quite stuck in their current situation. A lot of people, it tends to be the high pressure jobs and people from that background that really identify with FIRE. I'm thinking the engineers, doctors. If you look at a lot of the blogs, it's actually heavily driven by like computer scientists and engineers, people like that. And I think it's because those jobs are quite stressful. And so I like to repicture it and say, well, how about if you still work on these really great principles to be financially independent, but let's also find a way that actually you enjoy putting in a little bit of effort, a couple hours a day, to really enjoy your work.
Definitely, most definitely agree. So what is your investment strategy and sort of allocations that you use? I'm presuming you use mainly index funds or ETFs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I love Vanguard in the UK at the moment, because I do my research. They've got, I feel, the lowest cost index funds out there, the lowest charges. So my strategy really at the moment has been a switch from maybe using 80-20, so 80% stocks and shares, funds, and 20 bonds. I've went actually more 100% completely stocks and shares. So often every month I'll buy just their life strategy fund, to be honest, which is obviously a really solid blended fund of, you've got UK, you've got US, mainly centric based there, index funds in that fund. And then there's emerging markets and things kind of make up the other 7, maybe 30% of it. But my strategy really is put it all into stocks and shares index funds, because, so I'm 37 at the moment, but I just always believe that, I won't be retiring potentially for maybe 10, 15 years at least, relying on that money as an income source. So I want to allow for that natural growth to happen as best as I can. So I keep it really simple, and that's what I try and encourage other people. There's a lot of blogs out there that will tell you their exact breakdown percentages, which funds to buy. It seems very complicated. You've got to rebalance every year, all those kind of philosophies. And if we just get in the habit of, let's just buy low cost index funds every single month on autopilot and forget about it, that's when 10, 15 years down the line, you're going to have a nice little nest egg. So often the financial world, we can be guilty of making things too complicated. And I'm all about, let's just keep it really easy, really straightforward. So I do that for my family. I've been doing that for the past 3 years now since I found out about investing. And certainly, I'm touch wood, probably shouldn't say that, but I've been getting like about 8 to 10% year-on-year growth with our funds. So to be honest, that's good enough for me. And obviously there's peaks and troughs and everything, but it seems to be a strategy that's working for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I would be pretty similar to yourself. I use 80-20. I use the Vanguard FTSE Global All Cap accumulation and the 20% in Vanguard UK government bonds.
Yeah, there you go.
Matches, similar horizon. And I agree with you, trying to keep it as simple as possible, because I remember when I initially got into investing, I was looking into everything from corporate bonds to gold to, just thinking, do I need to add this? Will it help? So it's, I agree with you, keep it simple.
I think it all does help. The problem is everybody has an opinion about it, and very passionate opinions about what you should invest in. The only person who knows your money is you, and it's got to be based on your risk, your tolerance, but also, I'm a big believer in simplicity, because you don't need to try and time the market or beat it to get the best return and growth on your investment. It's the habit, it's the consistent putting in your money, and whatever's meant to come out of that will happen. I've got a great belief in the stock market, especially index funds. So A lot of time, particularly on my YouTube channel, people have comments saying, you could lose your money. I just it doesn't enter my thinking that could happen. I just always know with index funds, I'm going to track the top performers. And I know generally that will always increase over 2-3 years.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's just being consistent with your saving. Yep. So that's all, that'll iron out a lot of things. What are your thoughts on stocks and shares ISAs versus saving in a pension? I'll use my example. I'm quite heavily into pensions, but of late I've been changing a bit, thinking that I'm sort of tying it up for obviously quite a long time. And obviously there could be changes in the laws. Obviously it's similar to a mortgage in that you could put money into your mortgage, and unless you sell the property, you can't get it back out. And like a pension, you put it in, you can't really take it back out. So what's your thoughts between the two different vehicles that are out there?
Well, I love the stocks and shares ISA. So that's the first thing I always say to people to buy, because you can get access to at any point. The pensions and everything, because of the locking away, and it's now moved to 57 years. If you're, a certain age, you can't get access to it now rather than 55. It seems to be that although it's a great way to get the tax uplift, I'm in the mind frame with my pension. I really, I still work for a full-time employer, so I max out their contributions. So I put in the maximum I can to get the benefit of them tripling it for me, plus my relief on top. So that's, in my eyes, that's nice, that's sorted. But then my investment ISA, I see as my passive income for the future. So because you never know, if you put in a lot of money in there, that suddenly it could actually be an income source for you in 5 years. You've not got to wait till you're 57, which could be 20 years away or 25 years away. I love investment ISAs, and particularly I think it's a great way for people to actually start investing. Because I think when people think about investing, it's in their mind, it's only for the very wealthy. You've got a lot of fees. You've got to have account managers to look after. It seems like it's for only certain types of people. And investment ISAs are just this fantastic vehicle to get tax relief on your investments, but also just try it. It's as simple as opening a bank account. You can see it. You can see how much money you've got, what the value of your stocks are. So much choice out there. And on my YouTube channel, obviously, I mentioned the Vanguard stocks and shares ISA a lot because it's just the one that I use. And I find it so easy. But the way I divide my money, certainly I max out my pension contributions. It's a long way away. I want to take advantage of that. But, not to be a pessimist, but life, we never know what's ahead of us. And I want you to have as much money right now to enjoy life. So that's why I usually go between 10 and 20% of our income goes in an investment ISA. And that's just how I like to split it. I've got 15 going into my pension, and then the 10 to 20 every month in investment ISAs. But I can't strongly say how I think everyone should have an investment ISA. It should be part of your savings in general. They're fantastic.
Yeah, I would say, making extra payments to pensions or additional voluntary contributions, a lot of the time you'll find times that you could be rubber banding it, in that you're putting too much in and then you don't have so much outside. And at least if you have the ISA there or an emergency fund or something, you've always got, money that you can touch now. Obviously it's good, the discipline of a pension, being able to put it away. But things that worry me are things like tax rates, if they'll be a lot higher in the future, and if you've got way too much in your pension, how much of it you'd be able to access and things like that. So I kind of would agree with you now that ISAs are the way to go, because they're just, very easy to access, and, you can have more control over it in these years, kind of thing. Absolutely.
And you touched upon a pension contributions are fantastic if you're a high taxpayer already just now, because you're getting that 41% uplift. That's an incredible amount of money to be putting in. But as you say, the goalposts are always moving. It's now 57 for most people. We don't actually know if that's going to maybe go up to 60 by the time we reach, every time it could move to the government decide that you can get access to it. I just don't like anyone controlling my money for me. So that's why I like to have an investment ISA, and I kind of forget about my pension and just think about, what's in my investments, what's about multiple sources of income into our house and things like that.
Absolutely. I would also just like to ask, going back to that, about sort of how important do you think having a household budget is, and, in terms of, operating your home?
Yeah, it's so important in my eyes. So it was the one thing that we actually did as the first step to get out of debt. So we itemised everything coming in, everything going out. And I still do it every single month on my YouTube channel. You actually see me break it down for you. I tell you how much our outgoings are, and I show you where our savings, how much we're saving, how much we're investing. So yeah, it's one of those steps that allows me to feel like I'm planning, like I'm actually, particularly with working towards financial goals. At the start of the month, I always put everything that's important out the door first. So our investments are placed automatically away, our savings are placed automatically away, and anything else is left for life to enjoy it. And within our budget in particular, I split it in terms of there's money to further our education if we wish, do courses, do seminars, there's money working on our financial freedom automatically, there's savings. But I also believe you should live life and have fun right now. So making sure there's money that's guilt-free that you can go and spend on whatever you like, it's all kind of part of that bigger picture. And giving your money direction is really the way that you actually control money rather than letting money control you. So it's the very first thing I would say that anyone should do. Because if you don't know what you're earning or what you're spending, then you're really just living on a prayer that you'll get to your goals one day, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. It's good to kind of know your numbers and know where it's, direct every pound or penny to where your intended goal is. Obviously, a lot of people, have little savings or they may not have very much savings. And obviously, it's always a good idea to have an emergency fund. Obviously, I'm just wondering if you hold an emergency fund yourself and, where the best place to keep an emergency fund would be, in your opinion, and also how much you think is a decent emergency fund for the average person out there.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. We keep an emergency fund, absolutely, because most of our money's in the investment ISA. That it can maybe take 3 to 5 days to turn that money around if you really needed it, by the time you sold your shares and things. So we keep usually between 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. And I say 3 to 6 months because it allows you, let's say if you unfortunately lost your job, that 3 months of having a buffer allows you to find something else and to get potentially your first wage. So I kind of think 3 months is a good base level. And where we hold ours is just in a cash ISA. So I will just use, whatever's available in the bank, try and get the best interest rate at the time because I want the same day access to it. So for me, that's critical because credit cards are all great and well, but I like knowing that I've got access to that money should we need it same day if anything came up. But the topic of emergency funds, I like to spin it slightly differently. So emergency fund to me kind of suggests a risk of something bad happening to you. So I actually like to call it's our new opportunities fund. So if anything in life should be that we decide we want to maybe quit our full-time job or go traveling or something really exciting, that's a new opportunity for us that we have that money there. And interesting because of the work that I've been doing this year, my husband has been able to leave his full-time employment for the moment. So life is definitely in a new opportunity and we're learning to balance with that. But it's certainly, I like to spin the wording just ever so slightly to make it a bit more fun rather than emergency.
Yeah, I think that would, encourage people more to build it up as well when you think about it differently. Because, there's obviously people that say that, why would I need that? I just need to stay positive. But you're right. If you just change the way you think about it, that could make such a difference to your attitude towards saving it up. Yep. You've done some videos on mortgages. I noticed a recent one that you've done as well. It's really, really good. I just wanted to get your thoughts on overpaying the mortgage versus paying the sort of minimum monthly amount towards your mortgage and maybe investing on the side. Again, going back to what we talked about earlier about the pensions, about sort of locking up money and, tying it up in a mortgage or in a pension. It's where it's sort of again, you lose a bit of control, but then obviously if you invest it on the side, in the long term, it should do quite well, but there's always that chance, when you need it or it might, it could be the wrong time. Yeah. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that, if you think it's a good idea to overpay a certain amount versus investing on the side to build up like a money mortgage machine, I guess.
That makes sense. So personally, I know that it's a kind of numbers game. So there's a certain break in the interest levels of your mortgage compared to what you can get in your, investments, and that's where the kind of hinge can be. But generally, what we do as well is I use a 10% rule. So that means when any time we've got any debt, particularly our mortgage, we will meet the minimum plus 10% on top of that monthly payment. So that little bit extra, which, for example, we've got a house in Glasgow, our mortgage is about £600. We pay £660, so 10% extra every month. And that 10% has actually taken our mortgage from a 25-year to a 22-year term, with pretty much not so much discomfort on our part. That little bit extra, it's probably, a couple of takeaways a month that we are giving up or something. And that's where I would always say to people, if you can overpay, make it just that slightly little amount extra that's not too painful, because there's definitely a benefit for investing, but it's all to do with actually your interest rates that you're getting. Excuse me. So obviously, if your mortgage is perhaps 3 or 4%, let's say if you're in a tracker, if you're looking to invest, you might not even make that money gained back, because there's no way to guarantee you would get 6-7%, year on year growth. There's too much of a gamble there. And so just by paying that little bit extra on your mortgage, I feel that you are eating into your term better. You're getting your 4 walls a lot quicker in your name, but also put a lot of money into your investments as well. So I know it can definitely split people. A lot of people would say, throw money at any debt. But I think then you're not building up the habits of investing, creating passive incomes that could potentially pay that mortgage for you. That the greatest thing with investments is time. The sooner you start, the more consistent you put away, the better benefit for you. And so even if, you're struggling, I would always say, even if you can afford just £5 or £10 into investments and then overpay your mortgage by £1 or £2, you're kind of hitting both camps. So I wouldn't say one has its greater benefits. I just know that I like to make sure our mortgage is overpaid slightly to get the benefit there, but then we're also investing in the hope that we can throw money at it one day.
That sounds really good. I would sort of have to agree with you. I think it's good to pay something a little bit extra towards it, because obviously it's shortening the term, things like that. What's your opinion on sort of fixed rate mortgages versus variable rate or tracker mortgages? What do you think about those options?
So at the moment we're in a fixed rate. I particularly enjoy locking ours down for, let's say, the 2-3 years when you can. The tracker rates at the moment, because the UK is pretty stable, and I use that in, inverted commas, we're not seeing huge spikes in interest rates. I don't think they'll be coming down the line, at least this year. But I would always suggest, particularly if you're budgeting, using a fixed rate, because it is that solid amount. There was a time in my life where we were on a tracker, and getting that letter through the post back then to see that the mortgage was jumping up by £50 or, jumping up by £70. When you're on an income where you're maybe trying to pay off debt or you're trying to balance, too much variation, it can not do a lot of good for your mentality as well as what you're trying to achieve. So personally, I like the fixed rate because I can budget for it. I can also overpay. Obviously, with a mortgage in a fixed rate, you can only pay 10% of the total loan due extra every year, which is fine. It's usually achievable. But with the tracker rate, I just don't like, again, somebody else deciding how much I need to owe them. I like having the fixed amount in my budget. But, obviously with a tracker rate, you potentially could have a lot cheaper mortgage every month, depending on what the circumstances are. But for me, I tend to go for fixed rate because it is that nice, solid amount that I can work from.
That's great. So within the sort of financial movement, obviously there's a lot of people that have a real interest in owning rental properties and investing in property to maybe rent out, to make cash flow and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you had any interest in owning rental properties. I can speak for myself in that I don't really have an interest in it, in that I don't like the hassle of dealing with tenants or
it's too peoply out there. Yeah, I'm kind of in that. If anything to do with people, sometimes, I'm a bit of an introvert. That have ambitions. I think I would like to, as part of my dream goal, perhaps have homes that people who are maybe struggling to get on the property ladder could potentially rent from me. It's not part of what I see really as being my financial freedom strategy. But there's just too many of these kind of possible nuances for me where I would get annoyed or frustrated with it, like dealing with, people who maybe weren't that nice, or, having to manage. And also because of the changes in law again, a lot of people aren't making the same money they were in property just because of the change of law that meant they were paying more tax effectively on the income. So again, somebody else could potentially be in control of how much income and profit you're making. And it's one of those things that potentially I would like to do, but it's not something I'm actively seeking as part of my future right now.
Yeah, because I find that a lot of people have been speculating in property as well. And it, in some of the big cities, particularly in the UK, that, properties always seem to be going up and up and up. But there's no guarantee that it's always going to happen. And also if we'll have the same demand of people, because you could end up having all these properties, but almost nobody to rent them to, or it could become really difficult to, as you say, make money because of the taxes and so on and so forth.
Exactly. I think it's definitely a vehicle that people enjoy for financial freedom, and particularly, let's say, from 10, 15 years ago when there was the crash and people, could make a lot of money by buying things cheap. But, for me, there's too much risk involved. The price of property could drop dramatically. Glasgow, where I'm from, the prices are going up, but then there's no guarantee that'll keep happening. What if the price halved overnight, and you'd be stuck without a mortgage that you couldn't pay? So it's not my comfort zone. So I'll leave it to other people.
Let the landlord worry about it, sort of thing.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on the student debt crisis globally, or situation maybe in the UK as well?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so I'm lucky being from Scotland. We didn't pay for our post-school degrees. So I've got a master's degree that I didn't have to pay anything towards. Your first degree is free up here. So if anyone, fancies a degree, you can come to Scotland. We always encourage it. It's a hard one because coming from a background where university was just something naturally I wanted to do, I can see how other people would want to do that, and also then the debt is just part and parcel of it. I do think, though, that the price and the charges for that graduate level education is frighteningly expensive and ridiculous. It doesn't seem to quantify with actually the true costs potentially of having those actual taught lessons. But I think we're going to have to come to a mind frame that either people are getting a lot more subsidised education, or we potentially risk that people just simply can't afford to go into education. And certainly I've got 2 young boys. I don't know if I would necessarily encourage them to go into graduate education, because I'm not really certain that it's an absolute needed skill right now in the society we are growing up in now. I think my degree was lovely to get, but I don't actually use it on a day-to-day basis. I work in IT, and obviously I talk about money as something fun, so I'm not talking about engineering, I'm not talking about electronics. It was just kind of proving that I could learn something, and that would be my worst fear, that a lot of people are getting degrees for almost the sake of them, for the kind of prestige of it. It's one of those things that if you unfortunately felt that you had to take on that debt, the same advice would really be, you've got to take it seriously and look to pay it off. In my eyes, I paid off a couple of student loans that I got through university. It wasn't much money, but I made an effort to pay it off as quickly as I could so that was gone. So really, if you feel that you have to get that debt in some way, make it part of your strategy that you're working to pay it off. But there's going to come a breaking point. There needs to be some kind of reform about education, that people shouldn't be 22 years old and having £2,000 worth of debt, or $2,000 worth of debt over in America. There needs to be a balance between learning, but also people not having lifelong stress and debt as a result of that. You might have seen on the news recently that there was a billionaire who paid off a whole graduating class. I can't remember where it was in America. Yeah, so a billionaire was giving the end of closing ceremony for this graduating class at a university, and he basically said he would pay all their debt off for them. So there's obviously great things can happen. I worry that the fees could be quite extortionate compared to the true value of what that education could give you. What's your thoughts on it? Actually, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it interesting that, and particularly in America, you have to be 21 before you're old enough to drink alcohol. And at such a young age, you've got to make a decision on, whether to go to college or university and, take on such a big loan. And obviously when you get to the end of it, if you don't manage to get the career that you're looking for, or you're struggling to find work, and yet you've got all that debt to pay, it's really tough. And I mean, I've worked with a lot of people that obviously they studied something and they may get into a completely different field, and it may not be paying quite as well as what they'd studied. So it's kind of, it's disappointing for all the money that they've gone into. But, I think it's, it definitely needs to be looked at. But, there are people that are looking at alternative ways. And I mean, in America, they do things like scholarships and things like that.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So that's, good to get into if you don't mind applying for those kind of things. So
it really is just about the natural choice of what's going to benefit you as well. Like if you have a particular vocation you're interested in, then the debt, there's even things like in the US, the army will sponsor people through university, so paying for their fees as they go, if they give, so much time to actually being a volunteer within the army during that year as well. So there's definitely lots of ways to pay off the debt for you. I really hope in the UK we don't see the same level of debt being standard, because the feeling of debt, or knowing that a lot of your money is out the door before you actually physically get it, you're not able to really have the same joy with your money, because the potential is there to have more in your life. So yeah, I would really always say, if you're thinking about further education, you have to pay for it. See how many ways you can maybe obtain that information without having the same level of investment. There's lots of great books, there's lots of great e-courses, there's mentors. There's only, there's never actually just one route to achieve the same goal. There's many ways to get there.
Absolutely. So why do you think we are not taught much about personal finance at school? And do you think it's important for parents to teach us more about money?
Oh, that's a killer question, isn't it? Divide and conquer. Okay, why are we not talking about financial education at schools? Okay, see that you could go down all the conspiracy theories and say it's to keep you poor, but I won't open that can of worms up. I think, to be honest, people don't see it as an important life skill yet. I think that the way it's taught is, particularly from where I was from in Glasgow, it was, you go to university, you get a job, and that pays the bills, and then you live off the rest. So you can see the mind frame is you're getting trained to enter society to be useful, you'll get a reward, and that's what you live off. I wish that there was, my sister's actually a maths teacher, and I asked her, what kind of education do people get in finances? And the problem is also schools don't have the investment to get people in to do courses. It's just not a priority, because they see the normal life as being, you go to school, you get a job, that's how you'll have money. One of my kind of long-term goals, I would love to make a course that I would go in and teach kids and also the parents of the children as well at schools. I kind of double barrel it and teach people about education. They could watch my YouTube channel, of course. But, I'd love to see my children, who are very young now, getting some level of education about budgeting or investing, or even just setting up businesses and how to operate in a business as being self-employed. It's one of those things that I think it's just not seen as an important skill, which makes me really sad, because I think once you leave school, money then becomes a focus for some reason for a lot of people, for a lot of their day. And really, if you're taught from an early age that money is just something, it's just a vehicle of exchanging value in life. It doesn't have any weight. It doesn't have any kind of importance really, other than how you learn to exchange it for services for what you want to experience in life. So what I'm trying to do with my boys as well is teach them that, I believe that money is in abundance. I believe there's more than enough money to go around in the world. It's all about me figuring out ways to bring more of it in our life if we want to do things, if we want to experience things. So I want them to never really hear me say that money's tight or money's lacking. I want them to always think outside the box, to, think of ways to bring more money in. We're obviously part of the kind of human behavioural psychology is that what you hear about as you're growing up, you actually take on board as your actual paradigms, so your thinking process. So if you're someone who's maybe grown up in a household that hasn't got much money, and you consistently heard those phrases like money doesn't grow on trees, only rich people are just bad people because they've taken money from other people, all these kind of negative connotations of money, you will then grow up believing that. So I'm very conscious of that. I want the boys to know that that's not the case. Money is just another relationship in life. And so I want it to be positive for them as well.
I need to say, my parents' situation, I noticed over the years, my mum was always very good at saving. She had like loads of different savings accounts.
Right. Yeah.
That she had different, ideas for, I'm saving for a holiday, or I'm saving for that kind of thing. And I noticed that my dad, never had any access to like online banking. Right. He used to go to the cash machine to withdraw money and maybe not even know what was in his account or what bills he had.
Sounds like my marriage. Yep, I'm in charge. Yep.
Yeah, he'd just go there and he'd be confident that, he puts the card in, he'll be able to take the money out.
Yeah.
So it's totally different. Whereas I'm always thinking about money. I'm always checking my accounts and, seeing how they're doing, which I know is not good because it can lead to bad behaviour.
Let's go into that deeper then. So what is the fear? Are you frightened that it's not going to be there?
I would say it's just to see how it's going. But obviously, you probably experience unexpected bills that, can come out of your account. And that's happened to me in my life a few times. And I think it's just to keep a watch on everything. But also I like to see how things grow. And I realize that it can lead to behavioral, changing things because you're like, it's gone down. I need to, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I'm kind of trying to do it less and less. I've done things like deleted apps off my phone recently to try to, not think about it. But
I think investments especially, and that's particularly with people who are starting to invest, do this, that they check it every day. They check their investment portfolio and go, it's gone down. You can't do that. You're going to drive yourself crazy. It needs to be, you check it really once a month, to be honest. Like you see the money going in, you see your fund being bought for you or whatever. You're checking to make sure you've no fees that are due. And then boom, it has to be so autopilot because you're reaffirming these emotional led impulses of it's something to be scared of, it's something to be fearful of. And when you touched upon the unexpected bills, it's getting to the point that, and I hope this is something maybe for you, that you maybe got that buffer in your account where, you don't feel like you have to check it and be frightened. And then that means, that if a bill comes in, it's okay, you've got, you naturally will cover for it. I always think that if something happens, you always tend to find a way to repair it somehow. If a bill comes in or they've taken too much, until it gets sorted, nothing seriously is going to happen. Your home's not going to go up in flames or anything. So it's kind of getting into the mindset. It's okay to check it, but not to be frightened of money the same way.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think it's really important because my wife is like similar to my dad in that she just carries on with it. She doesn't really think as much about money and checking the accounts all the time, and she just sort of lives a bit and just enjoys more other things in life, sort of more important, I guess.
Exactly, and that's maybe something we're probably quite similar. Then I'm the one who's kind of controlling the money, and that's probably the wrong use of the term. But I look after the money, I do that. And my husband's having a great time. He's out skateboarding and weightlifting and all that. So maybe that's something we both need to learn a bit better.
Definitely, no, very important. So obviously you can probably tell, or a little bit from me, that I have, an unusual interest in reading up about personal finance and investing. Yes. And I'm sure you do as well. But would you say many people we know in our everyday lives, be it at work or friends or family, may be less interested in finances? For example, like I say, people at work have no interest in their pension or even what it's invested in. Any thoughts on that?
I totally agree with you. I think I have read about 300 or 400 books on personal finance in the past couple of years, and I still love reading about money. Reading just now a book by Denise Duffield Thomas, which is actually money mindset. She's a famous Australian money mindset coach. So I've kind of gone more into, rather than the factual stock market learning about this and that, I'm going into the mindset more, and the kind of abundance mindset and using that kind of mentality. But yeah, people I think there's a kind of head in the sand mentality that comes with a lot in life. People do it with their health. People do it with, weight loss, weight gain. People do it with sometimes situations around them as well if they don't want to deal with it. And money is just one of those things that people just believe it'll be taken care of. But the moment that you realise that life could be different to what you've just experienced, as I say, that mentality of you earn money, you have a day job, you earn money, and that's the circle you go on till you're 65. The moment that you get knowledge that there could be a different way, it's honestly like the heavens open and, the angels start to sing. You think, oh my Lord, this is incredible. Why did nobody tell me? And I think that's where the excitement comes from, because you just can't get enough of that positive mindset and change that comes along. I do bore people quite happily with talking about investments and pensions. I convinced my sister to actually open an investment ISA, and that's seen as groundbreaking, the fact that she trusted my information from me. But I think also people think that, particularly investing, it's for the rich and the wealthy, that there's too much risk. Normal people can't do it. These are all the kind of the things that I hear, in comments or from speaking to people. And at the end of the day, it's not my job, not your job, to convince people that that mentality might not serve them in the best way. It feels like it's right for them, but I feel better knowing that these money options are out there for me and that I'm creating a kind of better life for us by multiple incomes, by looking after our money. As I say, our life changed. So part of my story this year was in February, I actually had a mental breakdown. So I was actually hospitalised for a couple of weeks, which is something not in my character at all. And those 3 weeks of being in hospital, having a lot of things taken away from me, including I had no money. I just had to rely on, the NHS to look after me till I was able to get out and come home. It taught me that money is not as important as, maybe some people think. It's about having your freedom. It's about having the choices. It's about embracing life, because at any moment, you never know what could happen. And I think since then, I've talked about this about a month later, my husband and I sat down and we actually decided he would leave his job because I could cover the bills. My YouTube channel and blog is creating a fantastic opportunity for us as well. So sometimes it's not about necessarily bringing as much money into your world as you can. It's about bringing the right money, looking to see, are you happy actually in your life? If this was perhaps one of the last moments, could you look back and say, yeah, I made every choice right. I spent enough time with my family. I looked after myself. I'm happy. I'm content. Money should be a way to make that happen in your life. It shouldn't be the only thing that you strive for.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say I'm a big fan of, going on walks in nature and, that kind of thing. And even just running in general, just keeping fit. And for me, that starts me off really positive in my day. When I don't do it, don't feel as good. I feel really rough, sort of thing. And to me, it's so much better to start positively. And even now it's going into things like trying to eat healthier, because I know that if I eat real rubbish, I feel terrible, particularly the next day.
Yeah, and that's hard in Scotland. Is it Edinburgh as well? It's hard in Edinburgh.
Plenty of places to eat. So I know that you're, like me, a big fan of Vanguard. I just wanted to know how you first discovered that company and, how you sort of found it, I guess.
Yep, sure. So I read Tony Robbins, is it Master Money? I'm trying to think of the exact name. Money Master the Game, I think it is. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So I read his book, is one of the first books about money, and he mentioned Vanguard, and I just decided to find out if there was a UK equivalent of them, and then found them. And for me, because Tony Robbins and, these Warren Buffett and all that mentioned Vanguard quite a lot in their discussions, it felt like the right choice for me, and went on open investment ISA and I was hooked. So it's part of, my YouTube and my blog. I look at other companies. There's a lot of investing apps. There's a lot of, new ways to invest. But I keep coming back to Vanguard as my solid rock. So I love them because they're low fees, low charges, lovely selection of funds for me to pick from, even though I only pick usually the one every single month. But I've always found them dependable. And as I say, the low charges is a crucial thing for me. I don't want all my money to go out the door to pay for other people. I want it to stay in my pocket.
I mean, going back to sort of keeping things simple as well, if you sort of join another broker that has access to more funds by different companies like BlackRock and many others, with Vanguard, they may not have big lists of funds really available. I mean, there's probably plenty out there, but generally it's more concentrated to kind of what you're looking to do. So you don't get as sidetracked. You kind of like, okay, it's simple. I know what I'm looking for. I go into here, I pick that one. I go into here, I pick that one. It's just very easy. It's very,
exactly.
Simple way to invest.
Like make investing easy. Let's not make it stressful. Leave that to other people.
Definitely. I must say, just going back to what you talked about earlier about things like books about mindset, I did try reading books like that. There was one that I read, I think it was Money Mindset or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was it was different for me to get into because I like the whole step-by-step kind of thing. And it was just different. But I think if I read it now, it would be different. But, it's good to kind of be open to those kind of books as well. Like the Napoleon Hill one, Think and Grow Rich. That was a bit heavy. I read that years ago and I didn't really, it was a bit much for me at the time, but I think now I could probably handle it better.
Exactly. Well, so Think and Grow Rich is obviously a book that a lot of people have heard of. It was written, 1930, 40, 50, some time ago. So the language is very old school. But it's a book more about affirmations and visualization and these techniques. People don't actually realize it's not a Bible on how to get rich. It's actually more about your mindset and what you believe and the philosophies of some of the wealthiest people in America at that time. So it's actually one of my favorite books, but a book like you, I read it the first time and I was like, what the devil is this all about? This is for me. But I'll tell you what, since I've applied the principles in it, I have a goal card that I look at a couple of times a day with my goals written down. I do use affirmations. I do use visualization in my life. I'm part of a mastermind group. I've got coaching that I'm part of every week as well. So a lot of the principles do work. They do work, but you have to really, I've read that book maybe about 4 or 5 times now and I'm still getting into it. So it's not like picking up this is how you invest in the stock market book. It's very much, you have to be in the right frame at the right time and multiple layers to it as well.
I recently listened to another podcast, Boxing Life Stories by, I think, Tris Dixon. And it was an interview with a boxer called Jamie Moore from Manchester. And he was talking about how one of the first books that he ever read was The Secret book. Yes,
there you go.
And he was actually saying, he was saying that he had some kind of board as well where there was a girl that he really liked that was the daughter of his one of his mother's friends, and he put a picture of her on this board, and he ended up going out with her and getting married to her after all that. And he was also saying that in his boxing career, when he was at a more positive mindset, he delivered his best performances, but when his mind wasn't quite right, he lost fights. So I found it quite interesting.
Yeah, so The Secret is, there's actually a film as well. I don't know if you've ever...
I've seen it.
But the Secret is probably the glamorized version, the very simplistic version of the law of attraction, it's called. So it's basically, if you want the engineer brain in me, what you think about, you basically encourage more of in your life. So if you're positive and you recognize how fortunate you are in life, if you've got a home, if you've got food on your table and water, you're doing incredibly well. And it's about then when you start to be grateful for what you have, more good stuff will naturally come in your life. And the way to think about it is, I don't know, when you buy a new car, it tends to be you then see 25 other cars that have the exact same model as yours that you never noticed before. You're driving around and you always see a green. I've got a Fiat 500, so one of them, you're like, there's so many cars, how could I have not seen that before? And that's what it is. It's when you decide that you're going to focus on positive things, you make a choice to be grateful for what you have, your brain then has a bias to see also other stuff in your life. So The Secret is one of those books that might seem a little bit fuzzy, a little bit, out there, but actually the principles behind it are definitely true. Like, I have a vision board that you mentioned as well. So I have pictures that helps me with my visualization of things I want to achieve. But I'm also open that if I don't get those things, I know that something better will come along for us. So some of the books that I can kind of say have kick-started my money thought process. The first book I ever read about money was I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi.
I've read that one.
Really famous book. I read the UK version, thank goodness. That had all the terminology changed over. That's a fantastic, practical book, loved it. And then I read The 4-Hour Work Week, very famous, by Tim Ferriss.
I've still not read that.
Have you not? It's okay. It's okay, yeah. But basically, when I read it at the start, I was like, my mind was blown that you could actually have businesses that you didn't have to exchange 40 hours of your time for. I thought this was incredible. So that was one of the first couple of books. And then I'm really into a lot of the prosperity teachers from like the 60s and 70s at the moment. So there's people like Catherine Ponder. We've mentioned Napoleon Hill a little bit. And so I'm very interested in the money mindset and how there's a real abundance and a manifestation kind of wave of people coming out just now. And the engineer in me is kind of wanting to analyse and work out the principles that can help. And obviously I'd have to mention my own book. I wrote a book at Christmas called The Master Money Blueprint, which is based on 26 principles about money mindset and practical skills that really change your money life ahead. So yeah, there's definitely been some books that have been catalyst in creating where I am today. But I'm very interested at the moment on people's behaviour and thought processes about money and how I can actually change mine to get the best results for us as well.
That's very good. The message that you're spreading and the help that you're obviously giving others, including myself, what motivates you to do what you're doing?
Well, to make the world a better place. No, that it really just as simple as there doesn't seem to be good quality content out there. There are a lot of people who are trying to talk about money, and to be honest, I feel that they're making it a little bit boring and a little bit like it's only certain people can understand it. And for me, I just want everybody to feel like they can understand some of the concepts of money, like investing, like pensions. It doesn't need to be something that only, inverted commas, smart people understand. So right now, it's just really good fun helping people. I get to talk to a lot of people and find out about where they are in their journeys, and I get to encourage them maybe for a better future, a better way of living. In particular, I love helping women feel in control of money, because I think sometimes we can feel like it's a man's domineering topic, wherever that comes from in your life. But I just really like people living their best life and getting fun out of life. So I think right now that for me, I love making YouTube content, especially. It's really super fun. I love seeing other people's videos as well, what they create. So, I'm proud to be part of a community, and it's really lovely when people like yourself reach out to me, because I'm just a normal person living in Glasgow, and it's lovely to know that, people are watching my videos or reading my blog in any way.
That's great. So finally, I'll be sure to leave information about your website and YouTube channel in the show notes. But for any listeners, can you direct them to best way to find your work?
Yep. As you said, just go on YouTube, and if you type in Mamafurfur, so MAMA Furfur, which is FUR, you'll find me. I'll pop up. If you go to mamafurfur.com, you can find me usually on Instagram as well, at Mamafurfur. And yeah, just come find me. And also, I love when people comment or DM me and let me know topics that they would like to know the answer to or my opinion on as well. So anything money related, send me a message and I'll see what I can find out. And you'll get it with a Glasgow accent, usually unbiased, lots of comedy thrown in. But yeah, any way I can help people, I'm always up for the challenge.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Jennifer, for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've learnt a lot already from it, and I hope the listeners have learnt even more.
Oh, no, thank you. This has been a joy, even on a Sunday morning. It's a joy.
Okay, great. So if you haven't already, please leave a review for the podcast on iTunes, and also be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and remember to follow us on Twitter at SuperDiamondRa or SuperDiamondRA. Thanks very much. Peace out.